Asian history is American history. You can't even know about without, no, that's one. But of course it matters because the majority of Earth, 67% of humans are Asian, so you should know about, right? But also just on a personal note, Asian studies is a dreamer major. It's about dreaming, it's about community, it's about like helping, and it makes you dream that you can make a difference.
Fresno State having these Asian American Studies courses, and like to know that they teach about Thai, Lao, Cambodian, Hmong history, I was like, okay, let me take this because one, I'm already interested in it, and two, I can't continue living my life if I don't know my history. And so taking these courses, learning about the tragedy and the choices and the difficulty, it very, very much reshaped my mind and how I look at every individual now. Because when you look at an individual, you're not just looking at them, you're looking at every choice they've made in the history.
Well, let's go before ethnic studies, it's crucial to understand. It was Black studies. Black studies came first, civil rights, African Americans, 300 years of defilement, and then they were asking for civil rights. So obviously the 1960s was the beginning, the origin, the background of ethnic studies is African American oppression, defilement, and also fighting back. San Francisco State had African Americans who were fighting to get into San Francisco State, but also having equity, having education that reflects their background and their history, and also their contributions. And so that was a push. It was always a 4-group push: Asian American Studies, Latin American Studies, Chicano Studies, Native American Studies, and African American Studies combined together because they knew African Americans said, let's all do it together. Let's all come together and let's all fight for our self-worth, and also very important classes that reflect their needs and community needs.
Before I was hired at Fresno State, there was a community group that interviewed me of Japanese Americans and some Chinese Americans. And students also interviewed me. I was really surprised that I was interviewed by students and I was interviewed by community members. Only after I arrived at Fresno State in the fall did I realize that my predecessor had been fired by the dean of the College of Social Sciences. And he was unpopular, so the dean himself exited the campus by the time I arrived. So there was only an acting dean. So both the person who hired me and my predecessor were no longer on campus. And I think because the community was upset and the students were upset, that's why I was probably interviewed by both students and community members. I did have some unpleasant experiences when I first came to Fresno State. For example, the president of Phi Kappa Phi, which is the honorary society of Fresno State, was a Southerner, and when the director of counseling on campus introduced me to him, and I, extended my hand to shake him, he actually turned his back on me and refused to shake my hand. There were a lot of Southerners on campus at the time, and there were others who shared, let's say, those types of racial feelings, So it was a different kind of campus back in the 1970s. So it was kind of an interesting experience. But the students were pretty supportive, and I became very quickly the advisor for the Japanese American students, the Chinese American students, the Chinese overseas students, and even the Filipino students. And then later on, I became the advisor for the Vietnamese students, the Hong Kong students, Singapore students, and so on. There weren't too many American-born Asians on campus, and many of the Asian faculty were seen by the students as being aloof and unapproachable. And so for that reason, I wound up being the advisor to many of these different groups. And so it was a kind of a interesting baptism under fire, so to speak.
At that time, Franklin Inn, doing that. but very scholarly, okay? Not get, of course student is there, but so the Franklin tried to deliver that appropriate way that is, Asian approach also, I saw that too. But then when wave came, that was really trouble. I mean, yeah, not many people know how to really help those Southeast Asian students. Their background's so different. But when a wave came, okay, that was a completely different environment. Yes, Asian, but they're very different Asian, really to this community, yeah. So we all learned, yeah. And I really, I decided to drop everything. That's why I just, stay in a camp and refugee camp, and that's 2 months was a very important learning for me, yeah. I think that's a good opportunity for them to learn their original things, because the parents usually, or grandparents do not talk their own family. That's the way it is. They really do not share. They try to really move on. So that's usually happen in many families. That based on my experience, when I interview everybody, that's the way it is. So to me, I think Asian American Studies really important to keep that original, at least student is able to learn what is my original value is, what is important that really my parents do not talk about anymore. Once in a while, grandparents show something, this, oh, I see, where that come from, oh, I see, that's I hear all the time, that kind of, stuff. So I think that's very important for really Asian American Studies, really to keep up that, and also try to keep those original stuff to pass on.
Yeah, so I really didn't think too much about the program going into college. I mean, of course I knew of ethnic studies, but I didn't really think that Asian American Studies is this big thing. But when I went into my orientation and I was signing up for my first semester of classes, I had seen an introduction to Asian American Studies, and I was like, that's actually interesting because half of my family is Japanese American. And I was really I don't know, I was intrigued by it. So I took that class, of course, and it just really made me realize just how much information there is that is just not shown in K through 12, especially with Asian Americans, because we learn about more of a broad sense of everything, but to be able to learn about the specific laws and bans that were passed and all of the turmoil that they had to endure, it was just something that really interested me. And then it was literally my first semester I had decided to minor in then Asian American Studies, and then I had just kept going with it up until this point. Yeah, so just to give context, my grandma was born in the internment camps, and she was born in Poston, Arizona. And that was something I had just always known, because every year we have a reunion with that side of the family. And so it's always a topic that they talk about. But again, they're all Asian American. So, and not to give the stereotype of oh, they just hide away everything, but that's kind of how up until this point many have been programmed, especially since with the model minority myth of kind of shoving everything down and just keep on pushing and just kind of leave what's in the past because you gotta survive and keep going. And I very much feel that's all of their mindsets. They understand that happened to them, but they're not letting it hold them back. But I think in that they're not allowing themselves to kind of really take in what they endured and what happened, even if go through all of that. And so by taking these many different courses, it has allowed me to have a sense of pride, and it's really made me more curious about my grandma's experience. And of course she doesn't remember because she was one, but then I was able to ask her brother and have a interview with him where he explained to me basically through the lens of a 7-year-old what it was like to live in the internment camp. And so yeah, I think just all of these courses have really broadened my mind and kind of made me have a new liking and understanding and wanting to learn more about that history, because it's really not talked about in my family. So.
And it was the Stop Asian Hate time. I was really scared I was going to die of COVID, and also people were killing Asians, a lot of hate crime. So I do have an internal model, which is don't complain and create what you want to see, create history, use my privilege and power to help oppressed people, and also create culture. So I mass emailed 500 Asian faculty staff, and 13 people replied. And then so I presented to the provost. I got a lot of pushback in a lot of places. I was very surprised by people who look just like me, and then they gave me back the acceptance. I have 5 years, so I have 5 years to turn in the application, right? But I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this. I want to get it done, and so I did it in 6 months, right? And I did this for like months, and my husband's like, "You got to stop. You got to quit." So everyone told me to quit. You're going to quit. You have to quit. You got to quit, because I was leaving. It was when I felt down, I would reach out to people, and they would help me, like, can you write this part, like, really went out of their way, and they went through and they edited it. It was 120. They edited it out to 90. So I was like, holy moly. So I will never do that again. It probably took 5 years off my life, but it's okay. It's okay.
Honestly, it was super cool. I think that when it came to learning about history, even at a young age, they mentioned Hmong people like once, and I was so thrilled. I was like, oh my God, that's me, And so just being able to have people who are also excited to teach that at a college level, and there's people willing to want to learn about it too. Like, not only is it that you're learning about yourself, but I think that it's giving other people outside of your culture to kind of get insight about how you live and how your culture is and what it is to kind of be like you. And also like seeing other people who are also like you. That's why I think representation is so important. And so when Dr. Bond was like, hey, like you could be an ASAM minor, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of something like that. And so I immediately took her up on it. And then like a year later, she was like, yeah, we're trying to develop a major. And so I've just kind of been following her along this path to getting to finally officially be a major. And so it's really monumental, I think, that for the people of Fresno, especially the Central Valley. And so I'm really excited to see how it's going to go.
So every single class, Asian Studies, is a GE class, a W, or MI. So every single class. So if you just take your regular, which you have to do to graduate, your MI, GE, it's 6 classes, right? And also we count other classes you've already taken. Well, let's say you take MCJ, 2 of them, right? But they're ethnic, so we'll take that. Because you have to understand the 50 years that we've been here, it was only 2 Asian Studies classes. So 4 of them were just take whatever, right? So we're kind of doing this like same game where if you just take like 2 or 3 Asian, you can get the minor, right? Or take 6, get the minor. And we're probably one of the best deals in the house. If you just take Asian Studies classes, you automatically get the minor, right? Just like 2 or 3 or 4 or 6, right? But then if you just take 2 more to your minor, you get the second major.
Yeah, I did not start off like this. Yeah, I thought it was just biology, 4 years, I'm done. But what happened was I ended up taking an Asian American Studies class for GE in like the summer session. Really liked it, but then because of I had a pretty busy course load, there wasn't really much space for other classes. I was like, oh, that's okay. So that kind of tied in with taking like the Asian American Studies courses. So it's like, yeah, I want to learn more about this because I want to be in the health field. So, having that cultural competency, especially with, I want to work here in the future. So there's a pretty big Asian community here as well. It helps you better understand who you're working with if you know their cultures, their history, the context behind who they are. Each patient, they're not just their lab values, or they're not just their condition. There's a whole story behind the person. And so when you have, for example, Asian American Studies or any kind of ethnic studies class, that helps you get that patient into context so you can better relate to them. There's not like a separation between you and them, but you can relate to them because you understand where they're coming from. So that's how I see it kind of blends in together in that way. For them, I would say like classes like Asian American Studies, like it doesn't just apply within like the social sciences field, it applies to any kind of career you want to do, especially if it's like any public facing career. These are the people you're going to meet, like everyday people, right? So it would apply to any scenario.
Yeah, actually with Dr. Bond, I took 2 classes with her the following time, and one of them was in Asian American Studies film. And so again, dealing more of like the art form of Asian history in terms of like filmmaking, and Asian representation matters, which is what we talked a lot about in that class, like in terms of media in Hollywood or outside of Hollywood. Took that class, and then the other class I took with her was like a Asian anime K-pop class. And basically the class was all about learning about what anime, like not just watching it, but like diving deeper, analyzing the art forms. But the importance of the class is maybe see the different perspectives of different Asian communities, like Korean culture, Japanese culture, and so that's why I really enjoy those classes, and those are the classes I took. You know, Asian American Studies has been such a big part of my life, and by taking those few classes and getting the minor certificate that I got this past semester in Asian American Studies, it has really helped me grow as a person in terms of allowing me to open my perspectives up to different cultures and knowing more about my culture that I never got to understand and know. And so taking those classes allowed me to know my own history. And so I think that's very important, to know yourself and your own history.
People always fought back. So like they didn't just take inequality and oppression, and they also fought back as a group. So and we will continue to fight, I think. I foresee that Asian American Studies will always be under threat every single year, just like ethnic studies will be. So it won't be easy, it'll always be hard, I think. But as I was told by my colleagues that they have always fought and we're only here because they fought, so it will never be easy. So it's not like, to me, Asian American Studies is like inspiring change and it's not like a specific, it's that you pick your own change from learning this knowledge and then you inspire yourself, right? So your story is your own story, but you take different things. That is our drive. Our drive is make a 6th generation, be here in 6 generations, but to help the community in 6 generations. So every class has the goal of helping, service. I think that's something, every class has a purpose and a service component. If you fully engage in it, if you fully are all in, it can uplift you to the entire world. Like you can do anything with it.